Today we're going to be looking at the Cult of the Black Cube. This is another grimoire, much like the Theion. Is kind of the definitive go-to book for working with Hecate. This, in my opinion, would be the definitive book on working with Saturn. And there's a lot of preconceived ideas and questions about why somebody would want to work with Saturn, and we're going to get into that in this video as well. But first, let's take a look at the actual book. It's by Arthur Morris, and it's published by Theion Publishing. It's a relatively thin book, but there's not a lot of pictures or diagrams and things like that inside the book. And this is the second edition, 2021. And it has a few different sections that it's broken down. I think the flow of the book is very well made, very well designed, rather, to keep your attention and to keep things in a logical order, especially for somebody who might be new to studying and working with Saturn. Nice little essay in the beginning of the book. And then it gets into the actual Cult of the Black Cube. And there's a few older images throughout the text, which a lot of us have seen before, especially the one of Saturn eating one of his children. And it gives an introduction. And then one of the other names, of course, for Saturn is Zuhal. There's not a whole lot in the way of images. There's a few small ones here and there, which I'm kind of flipping through to give you an idea of the presentation of the book. But then I'm going to give you kind of like some bullet point notes about the actual book here in a little bit. Those are some of the ideas and things that come to mind when discussing Saturn. So really the first half of the book here on the left is the history and the origins. Section 2 gets into the gnosis and what you can expect from working with Saturn. And then there's the picture that's on the cover, and the one that we're most familiar with, generally speaking, with Saturn. And the last section here is the practice and the rites that you would use to gain and maintain Saturn's favor. As far as my thoughts of the book itself, it is filled with information. As I've alluded to before, the 7 planets are physical representations of celestial intelligences, and each one of those corresponds to a specific day, and there's certain days that certain rituals are better to be performed on for the impact here on Earth. And the magician basically seeks to improve their status or our status and alter the events using these same forces. Saturn goes by many names, and that's something that the book goes into a lot. Saturn is Latin, but other languages would be Zuhal in Arabic or Kronos in Greek, just for a couple examples. Saturn is basically the planet of death, if you want to sum it up. He's associated with darkness, trauma, chains and binding, time, cold, disruption, ancestry, death, and the Black Cube. Now, because Saturn learned that his children would be a threat to him later in life, he ate his children. And this form of deific cannibalism is what had made him become an outcast among other deities in most cultures and most understandings of Saturn. So he was imprisoned in a black cube, and that black cube represents Saturn, in case you're wondering. By performing these rituals and invoking or evoking Saturn, you are opening a pathway to receive some of his gnosis through the black cube. Contrary to the image on the book, he wouldn't have taken bites out of his children, he would have just absorbed them whole. And he is Saturn being death. He is the last step before rebirth. An interesting fact is that Saturn was the original god of the Romans, with many structures and landscapes being given his name or being a reference to Saturn. You can actually Google search black cubes or large black cubes or something along those lines. Try different things, get different results, but you'll see a lot of black cubes, very large in size, larger than some houses, throughout the world. And there's a lot of people, myself included, that think that the cult of Saturn or the worshippers of Saturn are still here to this day from Roman times, passed down through genealogies or just through the various texts that are available. I'm uploading this on the 25th of December because Saturnalia was the celebration of Saturn. Now, it actually went from the 17th through the 23rd of December, but that's where a lot of the origins for Christmas came from, if not the origin of Christmas before Saturnalia was Christianized. Overall, I really appreciate this book, and I highly recommend getting a copy of it if you see one online or secondhand. It actually spends 6 pages beginning with reasons to help decide if you should personally work with Saturn. It may seem like a risky move, and for those who are disrespectful or flippant about their work and their practice, you should not work with Saturn. There's a lot of warnings in the book, as well as some examples that doing so and approaching Saturn in a frivolous manner will result in sickness and potentially death after, of course, having great misfortune. Because, again, of Saturn's force and his unstoppable powers. Now, the reasons to work with Saturn, he is, again, a very great force. And really, when you work with Saturn, you're working to improve your own fortune while mitigating negative aspects that come with everyday life. If you work with Saturn, your divination, your necromancy, and your malefic abilities and practices will increase as you continue to work with this deity. So the only downside, of course, is kind of a great one, but for me, these are things that I've already kind of been experiencing in my life. But then again, I have great amounts of Mars and Saturn in all of my charts. So even if somebody is typically a cheerful and happy-go-lucky person, you will begin to experience, because of Saturn's great resonance, the negative impacts which manifest in depression, resentment, and suspicion of others. So these things can be lessened, of course, with routine rituals and devotion, but you get a lot of insight and power, and you can kind of see through people's facade that they put out, as well as succeeding in most realms that you are working in, whether that be your career, your school, personal life, whatever it may be. So I may do another video of Saturn Rising, which is a book I read a couple years ago, but I might read it again and do another review for that, but we will see. It's not going to be that video, but there will be another video coming up in the next week. So stay tuned for that, and yeah, wish everybody a new year, and have a good day.